Hi there, and welcome back to Culturally Sound. I have a phenomenal guest here with me today, Ben Gioia. He is just an inspiration in the space of bringing people's journeys and experiences to written text and getting their story out there. Ben, what a service type role you serve to leaders and entrepreneurs and anyone that's interested in sharing their story. How did you get started in this space?
Thank you, Chandler. So first of all, honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. This is really, really exciting for me. Yeah, I was super lucky. I wanted to write a novel since I was 12 years old and had a really interesting experience in 2016 where I wanted to pivot my business. It used to be called Marketing with a Heart, changed the name to Influence with a Heart. And at that point, I was doing public speaking. Somebody reached out and invited me to do a 2-day training at Stanford University, which was
Wow.
a big, unexpected deal. I mean, I have no idea how they found me, that whole
And
thing. Yeah. And in the context of getting the curriculum together and getting the contract together, I made a promise to the event planner. I said, hey, I want to make this event really special for the guests. I'm going to show up with autographed copies of my brand new book for everyone in the audience and your staff for free. So this is about 130 free books. And she's like, wow, that's amazing. That's generous. Said, you're welcome, hung up the phone. And I went, oh crap, I have to write that book that I just promised. Um, and it gets a little bit better because from the promise to the event, I had 6.5 weeks.
that's a tight deadline, sir.
You're not kidding. Yes. So got it done. It went really well. The audience loved it. The event planning company loved it. And the audience company and the event planning company both hired me for subsequent work. So that all got the momentum running, as far as the book writing. And then if we go back in time slightly, when I was writing the book, I got the book cover designed. I put it up on LinkedIn. I said, hooray, I'm so excited. My next book is coming out. And somebody reached out and told me they were a consultant with a Fortune 100 company creating a mindfulness and empathy video game for 20,000 employees and in collaboration with MIT. They saw my book, even though they only saw the cover, right? They saw the book and they asked me to write the curriculum for this video game, which turned into a 10-month consulting gig with this Fortune
Wow.
100 company. Amazing. Yeah. And those two circumstances, when I had a little bit of time and space after completing both of them, I looked back and I said, wait a minute, I can help people do all of that stuff. I can show them how to write a high quality book fast, how to get clients and partners before the book is done, how to guarantee the book is done before committing it to print, and then help them through the publishing and launching process so they don't have to take out a second mortgage on their home.
And I think that's like, for me, I know my wife is itching to get her book written. She's a behaviorist, an animal behaviorist, and super interested in that process. But it's intimidating, and there are such gatekeepers, or at least there were in place that prevented that from being a thing. And it sounds like you're tackling those. How, like, let's go back to what allowed you to believe that you had the abilities to tear down these walls and get these things accomplished and just do these momentous things that intimidate so many others.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really, really great question. And a bunch of answers pop into my head. And then
Let's run
it's a
through
kind
them.
of, yeah, it's a kind of funny array. Some of it is because I, have taken some significant risks in my life. Some of them have been, traveling in wacky, dangerous areas like, South Africa in 2003 when things were still quite dicey,
Yeah.
in neighborhoods that I shouldn't have gone into. I used to do a lot of drugs, and somebody made the point to me, said, that's really courageous to take those risks. And I'm not saying I'm not recommending this specifically, but I said, that's a really, really good point, to take that leap, to take that look. And I just think a big part of it was just the desire. Like I knew I could help people, and it was almost like, whatever it takes to make that happen. let me say yes to that. And I realize in most situations in my life, saying yes has served me incredibly profoundly and, ultimately given me the ability to help more people as a result.
So there's a concept in improv theater that I really grab onto, and you may be familiar with it, but it's always the yes and perspective, right? It's and a lot of people say, there's this movement of you gotta say no. You gotta say no to everything and only grab onto the one things that really matter. And it's like, well, fair. And I you don't want to overcommit. You don't want to extend yourself where you're burning yourself out because of this, that, the other. But saying yes and allows you to put these boundaries around what you're committing to. Yes, I'll do that, as well as, when this, and this meet up, and we're able to create the that opportunity and that serendipitous environment that you found yourself in when you wrote that book in 6.5 weeks. And hey, now we actually have a career built out of those serendipitous events, right? Where you said yes, there were some boundaries around it, and then, you sort of walked through that door. So how did those experiences and those fearless, you know, Amy Edmondson sort of points to there's three types of mistakes or errors, basic, complex, and intelligent. I think I have that right. But anyway, so, drugs sort of allow you to, when you're in it, make those basic mistakes. Sometimes they're intelligent, but by chance perhaps. And I mean, experimenting is part of the human experience, right? So what walk through how those fearless behaviors maybe to others weren't experienced by you. Is there sort of a touch point, an intersection point? Is there anything that's been presented to you that's like, whoa, no, that's definitely not something I want to dive into? Or do you just sort of grab onto everything with the zest of life and go after it?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and there's a few layers in there that I want to respond to.
Please.
One of them is I think very few of my choices have been fearless. There's certainly been fear, trepidation, sometimes full on terror, and that still goes on. But I still will make the choice because I know that the fear, the terror, etc. I mean, I check in to see, should I really not do this? Like I'll check in with my intuition, of course, but I also know that, the fear, the reservation, those kind of things, a lot of that is habitual, right? Stuff from childhood, not that I had a bad childhood specifically, but
Sure.
just, you know, unnameable things from certain times in our lives, certain experiences, even academic experiences. So a lot of times just the habit of the fear response is just like, okay, there's that uncomfortable feeling. I'm going to go over here anyway. So that's one part of it.
Hmm.
Another part of it, which it took me a long time to figure this out, was the, really the understanding of the difference between pain and suffering in my experience,
Wow.
right? Because,
Okay.
because I used to do a lot of things, as many humans do, drugs or not,
Hmm.
right? To eliminate pain and avoid suffering, but really not, most people don't hold the distinction of what those two things are.
Hmm.
Right. And for me, and this happened on my second hike in India, right, where I ended up doing a 9-day trek through the Himalayas, well, with blisters on my feet because I got my boots fixed, right?
Hey.
Didn't show up with new boots, right? Because it was the tail end of the drug time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had to walk going, ow, 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 for like 6 to 8 hours a day. And from all of that experience, I mean, one was I understood the power of the present moment because I had never meditated before. And suddenly I was like, oh, this is what they mean, because all those painful steps kept me present.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So that was part one. And then part two, which I figured out about 12 years after that hike. So I was like, wait a minute, there's that difference between pain and suffering. Like pain is the part of our human experience, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the psychic, depending who
Yes.
you're talking to, right? It's just part of the, our constantly changing environment and our constantly changing body. But the suffering part is optional, right? It's all that stuff that we add, the fear, the doubt, the worry, then the anxiety, the shame, the judgment of self or other, whatever the thing may be.
Mm.
And, I started using that as much of a barometer as I could. And and then trying to see if there was a hesitation about doing something, I was like, okay, is that a pain of some sort? A fear, for example, that's just being triggered because it's a new thing. It's a challenging thing, right? Like I moved to Spain 14 months ago. That was terrifying, right? Like, but I went anyway.
Yeah.
Or is there some kind of suffering I'm adding, into the mix that doesn't have to be here? So trying to look through those lenses and then checking back with my intuition, like trying to really be calm and listen, because sometimes trying to figure out things in the brain doesn't work so well, right? But we get real quiet and we know because we are wise, underneath all the noise.
Yeah. I mean, Homo sapiens, wise man, right? But in I think perhaps it's taking the time, you pointed to it, present moment, being able and willing. And there's so much of going after what's ahead and dreaming and getting after it and, running ahead and living in the future, right? Where we aren't necessarily, and as I'll be the first one to say, okay, let's plan 5 years ahead and roll back, 10 years ahead and roll back. What do we need to do today that allows us to reach those goals? James Clear, we fail to, our weakest systems not succeed to our loftiest goals. And I think there's an element of that where, you pointed to being able to be present in the moment and experience that life, right? And use those experiences to guide where we're going, as opposed to knowing where we're going and trying to fit our lived experiences today into some sort of a box to give us a bias that we're going down the right path. And I think that's a unique perspective. And thanks for bringing that to light. So that's sort of an interesting way to get to where you are now, helping leaders and entrepreneurs and whoever else looking to get their story, get their vision published. What does that look like for you now? How have those experiences sort of tied into not only helping you have the confidence and the wherewithal and the ability to tackle hard things, but also get that out of the people that you work with?
That's a great question. Thank you. So from early in my life, and I can't quite put a single date or experience on it, but
Sure.
there was something in my early experiences was a big desire and drive for service. And I think a lot of it came from my family, and then some of it was my school. And just the older I got, the more I wanted to help, And I did take different options or different opportunities to serve at different times, volunteering and a few other things. And then I had this experience of the first time I went to India. I was on a hike. It's a different hike from the blisters.
Okay.
Where within basically 72 hours, I faced death 4 different times. And yeah, it was nuts. And this is long before having any kind of meditation practice, any mindfulness. I mean, I was just really out on the edge here, but it was like bus almost going off a cliff or a mountain road, and then running from a wildfire, and then encountering a poisonous snake, and then encountering a mountain lion.
Oh my
Right.
goodness.
Yeah, it was completely nuts. And after we got through all of that, I came back and just, obviously spent some time processing what the hell happened. Why did that perhaps happen? And recognize 2 tremendous things. One was an incredible gratitude for life. Just what an opportunity to be here and be able to, exist for however long I can be here. And number 2, such a galvanized desire to serve and to help. Right. So it took quite a few years to align the service with the work I was doing around the book writing. But then when I moved into that area, I made the commitment to myself. I said, okay, I'm only going to work with people who are writing meaningful books, right?
Mm.
People who are doing good work with their businesses or philanthropically. Doesn't mean they have to have a nonprofit specifically, nothing like that. But if I know that they're making, you know, life better for people or animals, or improving business, or, giving people opportunity to go home from work earlier, any number of things, those are the people I want to help because,
Mhm.
in my great desire for service, when I was younger and more idealistic than realistic, I was like, I want to help 1 million people. And then after a little while, I was like, oh my God, that's exhausting. Right. And then I took a step back and I was like, wait a minute, if I help these people write these books, help them influence their network, their audiences, etc., I can reach a whole lot of people by extension. And that ended up working really nicely for me, with a lot less effort.
Right, right. So maybe help people help 1 million people might
Right.
be, there you go. Excellent. What you've touched on this a couple of times. I mean, the fact that out the gate, you mentioned that this company hired you to create a program around empathy. What what struck that chord in you? Like, why are you able to get in touch with, I mean, there's been so much written in the last 10 years about empathy being a superpower for leaders and the requirement of people to have an empathetic understanding of their team members. What drove that in you to really have that be a core tenet of your values, even in your business?
Yeah. Thank you. Gosh, there's probably a few different things. I mean, some of it came from, volunteering and service experiences of just, really having an opportunity to, to meet different kinds of people where they are, where they were. Yeah, and especially some people in some really dodgy situations, or they're really, really suffering, and to recognize, wow, this, here's another human being, right? Here's, that could be me, right? That could be somebody in my family. That could be my brother, right? There are no boundaries in terms of any of that stuff. We're all fortunate that we have it together on some level, right? So that was part of it. And another part of it, and it took me quite a few years, gosh, maybe even decades, to really put this together coherently, that I'm deeply intuitive and deeply empathetic myself.
Mhm.
And I feel so much of, the other people's experiences one to one and also globally. And for many, many years, and I think this is part of why I did a lot of drugs, right? There was so much input,
Mhm.
right? And it was like, what do I do about this? So it was a way to soften some of those edges. But, as time went on, I realized that there were more, shall I say, constructive ways to navigate that experience, like meditation, for example,
Sure.
any of the same language with, like, we were just, hand gestures and a few other things. And then there was still this very clear and direct human connection and warmth, and sometimes even, some bit of transformation, right? Like you could see a little something happen in that person's eyes, or I could feel something happening within myself just from witnessing somebody,
Mhm.
and just realized, or I guess it was underscored for me, how powerful empathy is, the standing in the shoes of someone, as they say, or looking at, through their eyes at the world. And corollary to all of this is something that I learned when I was in India. I studied with a lot of different meditation teachers, went to a lot of, lectures and sorts of things. And the first time I heard this was from the Tibetan monks, right? The idea of, you have to be really careful with empathy, because if you take it too far, it totally consumes you, right?
Mhm.
Because you're giving yourself up and you're letting it overtake you. So the operative word for me came compassion, right?
Mhm.
Because you can step in the shoes and see through the eyes, and also hold your space as a sovereign being. Because if you can't do that, you can't help.
Right. Right. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but caregiver fatigue is an example of
Yep.
overdoing it on that side of things, and
Yep.
just like literally internalizing that pain in
Yes.
yourself. You see it
Yes.
in someone else and you feel it so deeply that you actually have it internally. So, I mean, I think we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't touch on AI and its ability to write on behalf of individuals. Well,
Mm.
do you see that as a tool, as a threat, as how does that work into your day to day today? Is that a decent segue from something that's fully empathetic to something that's not?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up for all the reasons here. So I do see AI as a tool. The threat part of it, I don't feel threat directly to me in my experience. But the threat I see is that, we human beings, and AI is not the first situation where this has happened. It's like we see this great technology or this great way to do something or this great tool or product or whatever it is, and we're all over it
Mhm.
before really understanding the impact and the reverberations and all those kinds of things. And we're also humans in that we want to make it easy on ourselves, and nothing's wrong with that.
Mhm.
But when we start making it easy on ourselves at the risk of, or at the detriment of other situations, right? It's fantastic to have pre-cooked meals, right? But look at all the plastic, right? I mean, there's so
Right.
many examples of this.
Yes.
So in practical application, I think AI can be amazing, but in terms of one's book, for example, don't start with AI, right? There's a lot of things you need to do first. And for me, the most important thing that I teach my authors is to have conversations, using a specific model that I teach, to have conversations with their ideal clients about the book that they're writing so they know how to focus the book, what language to use, and that can start those relationships that turn into future client relationships, future referral sources, strategic partners, that kinds of things. And, if you come back to the content that comes generated from those conversations, that's when you can start bringing a little bit of AI to flesh out some ideas, right? To organize some of uh, the topics that somebody was talking about, right? Use it as an aid, but don't use it as the starting point, because AI is not your voice, right? Unless you train the heck out of it and give it a lot of good stuff to work with. And if you use AI to write your book at the beginning, have you really written a book? And can you stand in that, in that statement with integrity? I think not.
Mhm. Mhm.
And people can tell the difference, even if they can't necessarily say, oh, this is AI and this isn't AI. There's a flatness, a weirdness. There's other words for it that I can't think of right now,
Sure,
but
sure, sure.
yeah, AI just, it doesn't, it's not quite human, and it doesn't have the humanity, even when it's well trained, right? So first and foremost, talk to your people, write your book, get your ideas down, and then use AI to help you smooth out the edges.
And sage advice. And I think a lot of the work that we do at Ethos around digital marketing is helping people, tease out that voice, that, who they are, how they want to communicate internally, externally, the conversations that they want to have, that they're interested in, that they're looking to nurture and generate with their ICPs, the ideal client personas that they're looking to develop. And I think, as you say, using that book as a gateway to really speak to your ideal client persona as they read it is so brilliant, right? And the more that I think, so when we look at sort of at how we got here, right? We look at the dawn of internet and then social media, and everyone sort of became a little more isolated. COVID and the lockdown, shutdown, and the global pandemic really compounded and really made that isolation very apparent. If we're coming out of it on this side, have we fully recovered? I don't know, but I think a lot of, at least younger generations than me, are really looking to have that real truthful connection with the individual, the humanity, and not have that flattened voice that you're pointing to that you get out of this machine. They actually want, like, they're going back to even handwritten notes, right? Because there is that intentionality around it. And the integrity, being able to stand in that spotlight and say, I wrote this, yes, it's been printed, but it was something that came from my hand, I think really speaks more to that authenticity and that integrity that you're pointing to. Any of that resonate with you?
1,000%. Yeah, I think one of the challenges and biggest opportunities we have is to keep the humanity in the technology, especially the AI, right? Because there's so many amazing things that AI can do and is doing.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, this is, and this is truly revolutionary in so many ways. And right now, I think a lot of times the humans, kind of like I was saying before, they let whatever it is kind of run wild, for lack of a better analogy, and then suddenly they go, we have to rein this in. And it's like,
Right.
okay, well, do we have to go that far down before we start pulling it backwards? Like, can we be more intentional, more thoughtful, more on the ball at the front end? Right. And I hope so. I always want that to be the case. And I recognize that, money's a big driver, right? So people are going to push things forward because they see an opportunity to make money. And you I enjoy making money, right? I can help more people because I make money. But a lot of people aren't operating with the intentionality around the humanity, around, the how are we using this thing that's making us money? And these are not things that are going to be solved tomorrow, right? There's thousands of years, if not more, of human behavior and instinct and habit all in the mix.
Mhm.
I don't know the answer per se, other than how can we just keep talking to each other, keep inserting our voice literally, figuratively, and metaphorically, into everything we're doing, and keep doing our best to connect with the other humans around us as much as possible.
And I think that connection point is really, what we're all looking for, and I know I'm looking for it myself, right? In my group of friends, getting together and having FaceTime and meeting for dinner, or going to an event, and being really intentional, and, putting the phone away and not, answering the emails that I know are sitting in my inbox, or responding to the text to the people that are not with me in that environment, setting time aside so that, I'm maintaining those connections as well. Maybe if the experience is running a long period of time, but, people need to be able to learn to go, more than 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours without getting a response, right? And that immediate sense of gratification that we're so used to sort of needs to be rolled back, like you sort of pointed to just now, you know, allowing all of these bits of information, and having our sensories completely overloaded with, are always running on this frayed arcing internally, jumping from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. You know, ADD has never been more prominent. Is that because we're diagnosing it, or we're more pointed in how we're able to diagnose it, or is it more prevalent? I don't know. Perhaps either. What's most interesting for you today in what you're doing, and how you're getting involved with your clients? What excites you the most about what you do, and how you're doing it?
Yeah, thank you. So probably several things. One of them that I keep coming back to when I hear this kind of question, which I love, is just straight. It just seeing people understand that their book is possible,
Mm,
because there's all these thoughts and perspectives and old school thinking around books, right? So that it is possible in general. And then, when I'm working with folks, when we really start unpacking it, they go, "Whoa, like look at this." And I'm not giving them answers, right? I'm a coach, right? I'm facilitating them discovering what they know and just helping to frame it for them. And it's a beautiful, amazing thing, right? Because they suddenly go, wow, look at this. Like, here's my book. And this sounds really cool. And I'm like, I know it sounds really cool. Right? You did that. So that's one really exciting thing for me that's ongoing. I just really get such a kick and charge out of that. And another thing for me is I may have mentioned this at the beginning of our conversation. Yeah, I wanted to write a novel since I was 12 years old.
Mm,
And I finally cracked the seal. So, I've written 4 business books already, but this is the fiction book that's
beautiful.
taking shape. So yeah, so there's no rush. I'm just going to do it, enjoy it. We'll see what
Mhm.
happens and how it happens. But it's really, really neat because that's a 41-year dream that's
Wow.
starting to finally emerge.
Manifest. Right, right. And how is that writing experience different or unique or rewarding for you? Is that like it's got to take a different fiber, a different side of the process for you? Because I mean, I think majority of your clientele are writing nonfiction, right? They're
Right.
writing.
Yep. Yeah.
Have you worked with anyone to write a fiction piece yet, or you're starting with yourself to see how it goes, and then
Starting with myself. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm a voracious reader of fiction, like more than 100 books a year, that level of stuff. Yeah. And I've studied writing, I've written for years. So, I mean, this has certainly been on my radar and in my experience. And I'm always, as I see things in books, I'm always, tracking them because I'm going to go back to that. That's a great
Mm,
phrase. That's a great way
mm,
to approach this. Right. So there's been a lot of study, if you will, around it. And I read certain things from certain authors, and I feel sometimes a little bit of envy of
okay.
I can't believe how good that is,
Yeah.
and and I think I feel like I'm a good writer. We'll see what happens with the novel, but in general, I feel like I'm a good writer. Even on the fiction side of things, and I look at what some people do, right, and it's like any extreme level of artistry.
Mhm.
Right. It just my jaw drops because it's so superb and sublime and
Yes.
amazing. And,
Yes.
the envy is only for a moment because, I'm me and that's okay. And I'm good with that. But I'm just like, oh, I wish I'd like to do that. Or, oh, I wish I could have done that first.
And I think having someone that such as yourself who guides so many others in bringing that story and that description and that creativity out of individuals, I think having that admiration for other writers is perfectly reasonable and healthy. And not only that, inspiring to point to the fact that even though I am a guide, a mentor, a teacher, a coach, even I have people that I look up to and admire. And it's okay to pursue this path when you're not fully perfected in your craft.
Yeah,
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
it really is. Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that because I think a lot of people, put too much, I don't know, stake, importance, pressure on themselves of, oh, I have to be this level of good to even start this thing, or why should I even bother?
Right.
Whatever. And it's like, wait a minute, this is your one life, at least this round,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
This is your one life this time. So, do what you enjoy. I mean, if you truly don't enjoy it, don't do it.
Of course.
Right. But if the spark is there, even if the result, even if nobody's going to see the result, right? If it gives you enough juice
Hmm.
to do it.
Hmm. Even if you're terrible at it, do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. And many of the clients that we work with, they'll say, "Oh, I've got this stupid idea." It's like, it's, I guarantee you it's not stupid. It's probably brilliant.
Yeah.
And B, nobody starts at level 10. So if this is level one of an iteration process, this isn't cast in stone. So let's talk it out. Let's work through it. Let's see how it, let's throw it at the wall, see if it sticks. And if it doesn't, let's iterate upon it and see why it fell off the wall, and then go from there. And I think, that Brene Brown says, I'm here to get it right, not be right. And that phrase is always the moment that I first heard it, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to communicate to people. And again, admiring her, her ability for what she's done, like her hater, she's opened up an entire conversation around feelings and emotion and empathy and being able to connect with that side of yourself. But that iterative process of just start. There's no better day than right now to at least start. And even if you just do it for 5 minutes and then come back to it, at least start.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying all of that very, very much. And that quote, I was how many years ago? 12 years ago, maybe. I was a hospice volunteer for about 3 years.
Okay.
And that's some amazing transformative work, as you can imagine. I remember that certain people were calm and chill and ready to go, and other people were really railing against it a lot of times because they didn't take their shot at whatever that thing was, right? Not even that they had to win it, right? But they never took the shot, and that would be so heartbreaking to hear that. And I tell people again and again and again, I'm just like, take the shot, because you don't know if you're going to make it till next week, technically. I mean, may we all live long, happy, healthy lives, and who the hell knows?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean that not that you want to frame your existence in fear, but I mean, at least have that spark of encouragement and, I don't know, something that sort of edges you along to sort of keep taking those challenges and those risks, to not necessarily be fearless, but be brave in the challenges that you take on, and not have fear stop you from doing something because it's hard or it scares you, because those are often the best things that bring the most rewarding experiences to you. And you just have to open the front door and make that first step, So
I appreciate you saying that a lot. The older I get, and arguably the wiser I get, depending on your addicted to. I just really understand that, the things that are the most amazing in my life have been the hardest things in some way, shape, or form. Right? And I mean, I've gotten a couple of, just straight up bonus, like, here, it's really easy. Woohoo! Congratulations. But most of the other stuff, like, I've had to, really, really put in the time, the effort, the energy, one step forward, 9 steps back.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, those Instagram moments, they don't come overnight, right? No. It's those 9 failures that you had to recover from that gave you that great moment that you're able to capture. And, oh, didn't that come easy? No. I mean, it didn't at all. It sure looks like it. There is no overnight success, right? So what's most exciting for you in your future? What do you see in front of you that has you hopping out of bed in the morning? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, thank you. Some of it is my day to day. I moved to Spain 14 months ago.
Yes.
And, plan to live here, arguably for the rest of my life. We'll see what happens.
Beautiful.
So it's just really neat to, get out there every day, interact, improve my language skills, travel around, not just in Spain, but Europe, and, have access to different parts of the globe more easily. So that's a lot of fun for me. And then at some point, hopefully not too far down the line, although I dearly love what I do, I would like to sell this business at some point and move into some work that's super duper hands-on service, like a refugee camp or Peace Corps or, soup kitchen or something just really right there with the other human or animal or whatever the case may be.
Right.
I've done that intermittently, as I've mentioned over the years, but
Mm,
it's time to get back in there and really, really, really do it.
mhm.
And the idea of spending a lot of time, in my day to day, just being super present with someone or several people and not spending too much time thinking about, the 18 other things that I'm trying to run, in terms of being an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
That's also really appealing.
Interesting. And I mean, totally in line with everything that you've sort of shared with us. If you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would first things come to mind, no filter?
Oh, that's a really good question. Present,
Mhm.
uh, usually, if I can add a fourth in parentheses,
Yeah.
um, uh, caring and awakening.
Beautiful. Do you have a guiding quote that you look to, for ages? Mine was, I was really focused on preparedness. So it was from Abe Lincoln. And it was, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree. I'll spend the first 4 sharpening my axe, right? It- what's one that really speaks into your core?
Yeah, so there's certainly been an array, right? I'm a writer, so it's like this
Yeah,
one
of
and this
course.
one and this
I
one.
thought so. I thought so.
um, but there's one that I absolutely love from Jack Canfield.
Mhm, mhm. Yep.
So Six Felt Principles,
Yeah.
and if you have Chicken Soup for the Soul,
Yes.
I saw him speak one time, and he said, "SW, SW, SW, SW," and the whole audience leaned in, right? And he said, "Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting."
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And how true. And how true.
Yeah.
What does your morning routine look like? Do you have a morning routine, or is it an evening routine, or what do you dig into?
Yeah, thank you. So definitely do have a morning routine. Get up, do an hour of meditation
Mhm.
most days. That took many years to get into that. So if somebody's going, I could never do that, it's okay. Do 1 minute, do 5 minutes, build up.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, I've,
Yes.
I've been meditating since 2006. So,
Mm,
and then some kind of physical fitness. I started a training program a few weeks ago. So I have that in the mix
good for you.
as well. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. So those kinds of things. Certainly some reading of fiction. I really like to prepare breakfast like leisurely and listen
Easy.
to music. There's a fantastic many radio stations under one heading out of France that I listen to. A lot of classical music. So it's kind of fun to be in Europe and drink coffee and listen to classical music. I'm like this is pretty cool.
Yeah. Right.
I get a bit of that.
Mm,
Yeah, so that's probably the majority of the morning routine.
mm.
Um, and then evening routine, I go back and forth a little bit. Some days better, some days not so good. That's a judgment. Some days
Yeah.
better and some days not as consistent.
Good for you.
But journaling at the end of the day and practicing some extra Spanish at the end of the day.
Mm, mm. Of course, being in Spain, gotta be able to speak the language, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, I mean, and feel free to avoid this question should you wish. What is what is the one thing that you are most afraid of, and why?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I Man, you've got me thinking about a lot of things here.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
it's a tricky one, and because you're present and you wanna have that answer. I completely appreciate your pause.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, on the one hand, I don't think there's anything,
Okay.
and then on the other hand, when I dig in a little bit more, um, I I know I have witnessed and experienced adults a lot of times not even trying to do anything bad, but just they say or do something that just really affects children in negative ways, right? Because
Mm,
kids are so many of them are so ultra sensitive, and a lot of people aren't paying much attention. Um, so I just, and I've made a few of those mistakes myself with nephews and whatnot.
Mm,
I don't ever want to screw up with, any young person around me. And
mhm.
it doesn't mean like can't have a disagreement. I'm not looking for absolute perfection here, but just I always want to be really, super present, super engaged, and, really as deeply intuitive and connected to them as I can be, so I can really respond in the most thoughtful way or not say anything if that's appropriate too.
And I think that could be a whole separate conversation for you and I, because I feel so deeply about that. And, the resistance to being woke, or, the discomfort in being corrected, for people. It's not about, it's about getting it right, not being right, and understanding the big and the small T traumas that come along with the relationships that you have with people, and how those play out in their future, particularly young people. So I completely feel what you're saying, and that's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah.
What to pivot completely to the other side of things, I've got Yoda sitting over my shoulder here, and Groot down here. What do you think would be your favorite superhero, and why? It doesn't need to be Marvel, DC. It can be anything or anyone, but what shapes your admiration of either a superhero or an individual, and what does that look like?
Yeah, thank you. I always was drawn to the superheroes, or the portrayal, I should say, of the superheroes, because there have been many for many of them, that really reveal the humanity of
Mhm.
them, and, the mistakes that they make. And sometimes when they completely miss the ball about something or other in an action or a statement or whatever that is, but the ones who also, recognize that or accept criticism of some sort, constructive criticism, and then turn that around.
Mm.
Right. So it's not a particular hero for me. It's more the ones that are indeed capable of doing that, or like I said, portrayed doing that.
And I think there's such bravery and courage in the ability to change your mind or change your opinion, right? The ability to look internally and say, you know what, I got that wrong. And here's what that looks like if I wish to correct it. And, not be held to the standard that what you say is cast in concrete, because it's not. Your opinions are allowed to change and shift, and be adjusted. And you could completely go down the wrong road with a decision or an opinion, and you're perfectly well within your right to turn around, hike back up that hill, and take the high road
Yeah.
on whatever that change of perspective or change of opinion is. And I think, that should be fully nurtured. Not that we want people without integrity and flip-flopping all over the place, but I
Right.
think, having the ability and the time to sort of take a position, and truly understand the impact that could portray is important.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you.
Th- This conversation has been a gift, and Ben, thank you so much for
Well,
sharing your time
my
and your
pleasure.
thoughts and your insights. Is there anything else that is on your heart that you want to share, or anything else that comes to mind that you want to put out to the community?
Yeah, absolutely. Just that I encourage everybody who's thinking about a book or a second book to write the book, right? People need you right now. The world needs leaders more than ever before. Book is a great tool to support your leadership, facilitate your leadership. So, if I can help you, certainly would be my pleasure, but get it out there, and get, get, get help from someone, because like I said, people need you right now. And books are truly transformational tools for yourself and the people you serve. And there ain't nothing like them. So really, really encourage them.
Wonderful, wonderful. Ben, thank you again, and it's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you. You too.